I don't just use AI to save time. I use it to think better, to learn faster, to pressure test decisions. It's basically become a second brain. Most people I talk to are approaching AI the wrong way, utilizing it merely as a search engine or outsourcing their thinking entirely and missing the incredible opportunity to refine their decision-making process. Hang tight, because today I'll show you 5 ways I'm using AI to build a second brain and dramatically increase my productivity. The first step, if you're using GPT or something like it, is to turn on what's called study mode. I don't know how this is not more talked about. Nobody I really talk to uses this, but it's basically reading the AI as a tutor. So instead of giving you the answer, it'll help shape your thinking and ask you questions to clarify what you think. It's almost like having a tutor or a teacher that doesn't tell you what the answer is. They sort of challenge you to refine your own thought process. A lot of people are just using AI to outsource thinking. And so they ask a question and then blindly take results as truth. Number one, you always need to ask the AI for a source for whatever it's asking you. It also has a massive confirmation bias. So if you phrase something in a way that says, here's an idea I have, I'm really excited about this, and here it is, it'll confirm that narrative. But if you ask it a question, how can I make this better? It will automatically then change it because you've already implied, you've led the witness with the question. Even if you try and ask something objective though, it's still very hard to get an unbiased answer because it'll give you an answer. And then when you respond to that answer, it'll customize its response to that based on the way that you responded to that answer. So the way to solve this, it's not perfect, but an order of magnitude better, is to use study mode. I used this recently while writing a piece on energy, commodities, etc. When I asked it questions, it would force me to answer the questions it would then ask me back. And it would say, rank these in order of importance, and it would give me 4 answers. Or it would say something like, describe in 3 sentences and summarize what I just said to you. It would almost like quiz me, and then it would refine the answers that I gave it. And so this process was quite amazing. It was really cool because it would force me to actually write. And when you write something, you're forced to condense your thoughts in a way that is extremely tangible, makes you know whether or not you understand something if you can respond to it and write it and synthesize something in 1 or 2 questions. And then of course you get to interact with the AI to get feedback on your thoughts and whether or not they were right. You're also getting quizzes and tests, basically ranking answers in order of likelihood. It'll say, does this happen because of A, B, or C? Of course, you have to trust that the answers are right or fact check whether or not the AI is right with its answers, but at least you're engaging your mind and thinking, and you're not outsourcing your thought. This is probably the biggest mistake I see people make. I can't believe this is not more talked about. The second way I think using AI is really, really cool is to speak to it. And you can chat with it and you can customize the voice to respond in various different tones. So it could be much more direct, it could be more friendly, it could be more assertive. I like it to be direct, completely blunt with me. I don't want any sugarcoating. I don't want a friend. I want like a direct coach that's going to help me solve whatever I'm trying to do. I think chatting with it is amazing. Being able to communicate and articulate your thoughts well is one of the most important meta skills in life. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you communicate effectively or sell or be convincing about what it is you're trying to do, everybody's always selling something. You're trying to sell your product or service. Obviously that's direct, or just an idea that you have to someone else. Sell someone to go to the restaurant you want to go to for dinner. And if you could articulate why the restaurant you want to go to is better than the other people, and you can know what is going to drive other people to make a decision to go to your restaurant, and you can articulate that well, that's a life hack. Simply just chatting with AI by voice about any topic. It doesn't have to be like you're chatting about something vulnerable, but you're talking to improve your speech. One thing I'm working on is to avoid using filler words. And of course, I've watched training videos like on YouTube and whatever, how to do this. There's some great techniques like land the sentence so that you're out of breath when the sentence finishes, and then you have to breathe, or breathing in between sentences, or being more mindful of the words you're using. But if you can chat with a AI coach and you can tell it, this is what I'm trying to do, stop me every time you notice that I use these words, and then help correct me so that I don't do that. It's a great way to get immediate feedback. You could do this while you're on a morning walk. My favorite is also doing this while driving. So you can just be talking randomly about any topic that's on your mind. And it's a great way to engage and sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You could also do this in a different language. A lot of people are trying to learn a separate language or refine their skills and increase their vocabulary, even in their native language. But you could also do that as well. And I think that's an extremely effective way. If I'm trying to improve my Italian, for example, it could be a conversation or speech coach. And that is high leverage in pretty much every facet of life. So the third hack I have is to improve your conversation skills or your listening skills or your sales skills or whatever it is that you're trying to do. A lot of people have Zoom calls and a lot of people record these. You want to be very mindful about getting permission and all that stuff. Let's say you have a company meeting and that meeting is recorded, and then they transcribe that meeting and they send you a summary of the call. This is already happening all the time on Zoom and other platforms. This is very, very common. There's a lot of AI note takers, for example. But one thing you can do is you can get the transcript from that call. If you have the call recorded, you can get the voice note from the call, and then you could upload that to a service like otter.ai, and it will take that voice note and it will transcribe the entire voice note into words. So now you have the entire summary of your Zoom call, your Google Meet, or your meeting. You don't not only have the summary, you have the entire transcript. So like start to finish, a 45-minute call, every single word that was said, and the various speakers. Otter AI does this automatically. They already have a built-in service that does this, but you could also feed it to GPT or Claude or whatever. And you can ask for feedback, like how can I be a better listener? Where did I ramble too much? How can I be a better speaker? They can even detect your filler words because it catches those and it says you use too many filler words. And now you know I need to stop using like and I need to pause. I need to speak slower. Obviously something I need to do. How do I be a better listener? How do I ask better questions? There's a lot of things you could do with that. Improving your ability to communicate is extremely high leverage, but you're already doing all of these things anyway. You're already on Zoom, already on the phone, already doing these things. It's literally like 5 extra minutes to transcribe the call and then upload it and then ask the AI a question about it. And it's incredibly effective. Number 4 is to ideate. And this is where I think this is extremely important. I don't want the AI to like write for me. I actually enjoy writing, but I also want everything to be in my voice. It's just not good at writing in your voice, no matter how hard you try. I've even uploaded a book I've written and tried to have it like rewrite content in my voice. It doesn't do that. But I think this is also not a great idea because you want to maintain your mental bandwidth. I actually read a very interesting article about cats and how they like evolved over time. And they've basically not done certain behaviors over thousands of years because they've become domesticated and they've like lost these genetic dispositions to behave in certain ways. The basic place that we're at as a species in humans is like if you outsource all of your thinking and your critical thinking to the AI to like create the content or give you the answer or give you the idea, that's like where the magic is lost. A lot of the value of something is forcing yourself to go through the pain and struggle of not knowing the answer and discover that answer through ideating and writing. Writing is frankly one of the most underrated things in the world, I think, because if you have to write 500 words, even a tweet, a 280 word tweet on what is Bitcoin and why it has value, or what is a good marketing strategy, or what is this answer to the problem you're trying to solve, if you have to condense that to 280 characters, it means you understand it very well. Even condensing it to 1,000 words is very, very hard for a macro thesis like what's going to happen in the future with robotics, for example, or AI or automation. Like if you could condense that, you understand it well. It's a very long gap to go from spending 1,000 hours on something to understand it to synthesizing it into 1,000 words. That gap, that shrinkage is where all of the expertise and simplicity and elegance comes in. And so if you're outsourcing that to the AI, that's the game of life to me. But one thing I do think is very fair is ideate. So for example, if I'm in an interview, I do this with our team at Feed on Poker, Eric comes to me and says, Alec, I prepared 30 questions and my team is there to film and they say, hey, we're going to film these and turn them into reels. Here's the questions. And he asked me questions and then I answer to the camera and I create content. I didn't have to come up with the questions or all that stuff. So to me, having it prompt you with ideas for, hey, this is what is happening. This is a popular piece of content. This is something that would match really well with your niche or what you're trying to create or what you're trying to do or what you're trying to ideate on. That's fine. I mean, that's not really doing the work. That's just like prompting inspiration. So that's where I draw the fine line. But I think for that, it does a very, very good job. Of course, if you have like a custom AI, it knows you well or whatever, or you have a lot of chat history with it, it will know you a little bit better in what you're doing. But that's where I draw the line. But I think it is very effective for that. So for example, one thing you can do is like, give me 30 ideas for social media posts or ask me 30 questions that I could answer and each one will be turned into a piece of content. So that relationship I think is very effective. Whereas just turning off the idea and outsourcing it and saying, write 30 social media posts, that's a complete fail. The fifth one is a 2-part answer. So stay tuned. And it's to be your editor. I think this is very helpful, but you have to customize the settings. AI writes in a very AI way, and it's like highly tilting when you go on social and it's very obvious something's written by AI. AI does two things that are very obvious. The first one is one you're aware of. The second one's one you're probably not. The first one is it uses M dashes. So it uses that like long hyphen. It sort of sucks because a lot of really good writers use M dashes and now they're sort of ridiculed because it looks like their writing is AI because people now have associated M dashes with AI. So if you do have an AI, you have to go into the settings and the personalization, say never use an M dash, and then it'll write with a semicolon or a comma, even if that's grammatically incorrect, or you might have to rewrite it or whatever. So if you're editing an article and like you want to edit it for grammar, you've already written the article. You're going to send that to an editor anyway before you publish it. Or you write a long form tweet and you want it to be edited. That is a reasonable use because you're just tidying up your grammar, but it still doesn't do this well because it doesn't use your voice and it writes like the AI. So the first thing you have to do is know M dashes and customize your settings. Even if you write a post and have the AI edit it, it will edit it in this way. And then you have to re-edit it in your own way so that it doesn't sound like AI. And the second thing that it does that's so tilting, AI will always use a negative to explain something before using a positive. It's like a way of talking that's sort of catchy and viral. And so it'll say something like, when this happens, this. When export controls tighten, China accelerates. It'll say something very cliche, sounding catchy and smart, but it doesn't really like have a lot of sense. And it'll always start with a negative. So it'll say, you don't slow arrival by locking the gate. You only teach them how to build their own house. You don't this, you do that. It'll say something like, this is not a closed loop. It's a new system for the operating world of the future. And it'll say something like kind of sounds interesting, but it doesn't really mean anything. And it's sort of hyperbolic, but it'll always start with a negative. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so it'll do this like like juxtaposition of negative, positive, when this, then that. It's not this, it's this big thing. And it's just a really obvious way that the AI writes. You have to be super mindful when using it as an editor. It does do a good job of correcting grammar and making sentences sound better and structure, especially if you have 2,000 words and you need it to get to 1,500. It's very good at condensing or understanding what's a repetition, but you'll even have to rewrite entirely when the editor writes. The final thing I'd like to do with writing has been super effective for me is to listen to my own writing. So I just did this with a 4,000 word piece I published on alectorelli.com, and I actually took the piece and then I put it into 11 Labs, and it's an amazing AI service where they basically have hundreds of voices, the most realistic sounding, and you can have it sound any way you want. So any language, any accent, it'll read back to you whatever you put in the text. So the text to speech, it's very simple. There's a free version as well, and it's very cheap to pay for extra credits. But reading your own writing back to you, especially if you're going to a meeting and you have talking points, or you're doing a presentation or a keynote, or having an article that you're going to publish, a tweet or whatever, it's extremely helpful. Doing this myself is not as effective because number one, nobody really likes listening to their own voice. Unless I'm going to give a keynote, I want to see how I'm actually going to sound. But if it's an article, I don't need that to sound in my own voice. If anything, it's sort of distracting, like hearing your voice on an answering machine. And the second thing is that sometimes when you read your own article, you'll still make the mistakes that the AI won't make. I had this word in my head of what I knew I was trying to write. The word was startling, and instead I wrote starting. But when I read the essay out loud, I still read the word that I thought I was writing. Whereas when I copied and pasted it into 11 Labs, it read the actual word that was on the paper. So I was missing this even when I tried myself to read it out loud. Whereas of course the AI doesn't miss this. This is an extremely effective way to combine the editor with the voice of hearing the article. And also when you hear things, it sounds a lot different. And when you hear the way that the AI writes in this like negative, positive, hyperbolic thing, it's completely unmissable. So you will need to re-edit the article after that to get it back to where you want to go. So I'd love to hear from you as well. Let me know in a comment of other ways you're using AI to be more productive, or if I missed anything. If you want more videos on this or any topic, shoot me a DM at Alec Torelli or hit me up at alectorelli.com. I publish a weekly newsletter called Beyond the Felt, where I share one lesson on decision making and risk from poker that applies to general decision making in life and business. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see you in the next one.